This is the story of a man who spent over 400 days fighting to survive in the world's largest and most unforgiving ocean, the Pacific. After more than a year at sea, he returned alive, breaking records. But what happened next shocked everyone and led to a surprising twist. He ended up in jail. Let's dive into this unbelievable. The Pacific Ocean is a giant. It covers 71% of the Earth's surface, making it bigger than all the land combined. It's so vast, it's almost impossible to grasp how large it really is. This ocean holds thousands of small, remote islands, some of which no one has ever visited. It is possible that if you combine all the land on this Earth, deserts, ice, mountains, rivers, and everything else, even then, it would still be smaller than the Pacific Ocean. If someone gets lost in the Pacific, survival becomes nearly impossible. But against all odds, one man managed to survive. In November 2012, José Salvador Alvarenga, a 36-year-old fisherman from Costa Azul, Mexico, set off on a fishing trip with his friend Ezequiel Cordoba. Alvarenga's plan was to spend 30 hours in this vast Pacific Ocean, about 120 kilometers away from the port. If he caught good fish, great. Otherwise, he would return home. They were in a small 7-foot boat, so small that José couldn't even lie down in it. It was meant for short trips, close to shore. The boat was small, with only one small engine and a tiny fridge. They didn't have much food, just enough for one day. They went 120 kilometers away from the shore, hoping to catch fish. But soon, they saw a storm coming toward them. To avoid it, they decided to leave the fishing net behind and rushed back to shore, driving the boat as fast as they could. For 6 hours, they kept going, getting closer to the shore. They could see it, and they could even see their village. But then the engine stopped working, and they were stuck. They tried to use their radio to call for help, and they told their boss their location, but soon the radio's battery died. Now they couldn't talk to anyone. The storm was far behind them, but the boat started drifting away from the shore. They couldn't do anything. The shore disappeared from sight, and the strong waves pushed them farther into the ocean. As days turned into weeks, their supplies ran out. They had no food left, and they had thrown away their fishing gear to make the boat lighter during the storm. They had no choice but to survive on what they could catch: birds, fish, and even turtles. A bird flew onto the boat. They tried to catch it, but they couldn't. They waited, hoping another bird would come. Soon another bird arrived, and this time they managed to catch it. They ate the bird to survive. When rain didn't fall, they had no fresh water, so they drank fish and turtle blood to stay alive. Their situation became more desperate each day. After about 4 months at sea, Cordoba's health started to fail. He could no longer eat or drink, and eventually he passed away, leaving José alone in the vast ocean. Despite the pain and loneliness, Alvarenga didn't give up. He survived by catching fish with his bare hands and drinking rainwater. He even ate birds when they came near. Slowly he got used to this difficult life, but the loneliness was still hard to bear. For 438 days, he survived in the middle of the ocean, alone and lost, with only the will to live keeping him going. He had been stuck alone in the middle of the vast Pacific Ocean for more than 6 months, surrounded by nothing but water as far as he could see. He was tired, hopeless, and had almost given up on life. His only companion was his small boat, which had carried him 8,000 kilometers away from Mexico. In all that time, he had lost his friend, and he felt completely alone. The part of the ocean he was drifting in was one of the most remote places on Earth, where only cargo ships passed by. It felt like the world had forgotten about him, and he was never going to be found. But one day, after months of being alone, something happened. In the distance, Josh saw a cargo ship, his first sign of life in all that time. For a moment, hope rushed back into his heart. He waved his arms and shouted, doing everything he could to get their attention. But the ship was too far away, and despite his best efforts, they didn't see him. Slowly, the ship disappeared, and Josh realized that he might not survive this after all. Imagine being stuck in the middle of the ocean, with no one around for months, and then finally seeing a ship, only for it to pass by without noticing you. That was Josh's reality. He kept drifting, weak and burned by the sun, with only torn clothes to protect him. Sometimes he wondered if dying would be easier, but he refused to give up. He kept holding on to the small hope that one day someone would find him. Days went on, and Josh's strength faded. His clothes were falling apart, and he had only one undergarment left to protect him from the sun. He felt abandoned by the world, alone with his fear and thoughts, wondering if he would ever be rescued. Yet, even though he was in so much pain, he didn't stop trying to survive. After 11 months, Josh saw another ship. This time, he knew he had to make them see him. But the ship was so far away that it looked like a tiny dot. No matter how much he tried to signal them, there was no way they would spot him in time. Over the next few days, more than 20 ships passed him, and even planes flew overhead, but no one noticed him. Josh was now 10,000 kilometers away from home. His situation was growing worse, and death seemed like it would be a relief. He remembered something his mother had always told him: those who commit suicide never go to heaven. This thought kept him going. even when everything inside him told him to quit. Then, after 438 days without food or water, Josh finally saw something in the distance. It was an island, just 15 kilometers away. Finally, after 14 long months and drifting over 8,000 kilometers, José's luck changed. On January 30th, 2014, he saw a sign of life. Birds flying and coconuts floating in the water. These signs meant land was nearby. He couldn't believe his eyes. With the last of his strength, he paddled toward a tiny island called Ibon Atoll. It was nothing short of a miracle that he reached this small, remote island. If he had missed it, he would have continued drifting in the endless ocean. It took him about an hour to reach it. He jumped into the water and swam toward the shore, letting the waves guide him. When he finally made it to the sand, he collapsed, feeling like he had found treasure. Alvarenga had made it to a small island in the atoll region. After checking out the area, he spotted a house, and soon after, a person came out. For the first time in 14 months, he saw another human being. This brought tears to his eyes, and after sharing his story, the local police arrived. Josh told them everything, but no one believed him. How could someone survive for 438 days on a small boat without food? To prove his story, Josh called his boss, who used to send him on fishing trips. His boss confirmed that Josh had been lost at sea over a year ago. Because Josh had arrived in another country without a visa, he was sent back to Mexico after some legal proceedings. However, his journey was far from over. The families of his friends, who had died along the way, filed a case against Josh, accusing him of killing and eating his friend. After several legal battles, Josh was cleared. A few days later, he published a book titled 438 Days, where he shared his entire story. Unknowingly, he set a world record for surviving at sea, one that no one would dare to break. Josh's story serves as an inspiration that no matter how tough life gets, there is always a way through. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.